Twin Snakes is awesome. Not many can admit this fact. The original Metal Gear Solid is like the sacred cow of the series. Everyone knows it's bad, everyone pretends otherwise and ignores it. They're all playing 5, 3, 2, maybe even 4, or they're playing Metal Gear Rising. As Twin Snakes is a remake, this is one of the few appraisals I perform in which its qualities will be evaluated in relation to the original. Twin Snakes takes that lame adventure game called Metal Gear Solid and inducts it into a canon featuring substance and subsistence. The true core trilogy of Metal Gear Solid ironically cannot feature the original game due to its controls being incongruent with the other two. In this induction, this initiation, Twin Snakes does achieve something cool, something swag and awesome. But this is not to say there aren't any missteps. Before I tell you what they are, you need to know something, especially you lovers of the original game. Twin Snakes' error was not that it changed too much, it was that it didn't change enough. Okay, I really want to get that across before we jump into this appraisal, into this appreciation of Twin Snakes, alright? You really need to get that through your head. It did not change enough. What truly unites Twin Snakes with Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, which the original Metal Gear Solid lacks, even if it is good in some other aspects, and even if Twin Snakes itself is bad in many respects, is that it is a stealth action game by the infusion of first-person aiming. The ability to go into first person, take out your gun, and solve a problem, be it a boss or a patrol, rather than aim in first person and then hope your shot lands, is what makes it part of a trilogy. The canon of Metal Gear Solid. The genius of this, especially compared in something resembling the original environment of Metal Gear Solid, is that it simultaneously invalidates all the bespoke adventure game item design and replaces it with a universal mode of conflict resolution on an expendable resource available to the player at all times. First-person aiming also integrates with the stop and observe, which unfortunately is not enforced in this remake. You are allowed to use even the easy radar on an extreme playthrough. Why? Furthermore, why can't you lean? There's no leaning except in first person. Metal Gear Solid 2 came out before this game. Could they just not figure out how to code it in? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and infer that this was because they wanted you to use first person for all observation. They wanted to go all the way and really universalize first person as the mode of resolution. The engine is designed with leaning in mind, and leaning in itself does not have any more potential to break the game than allowing you to use stealth camo on extreme. Okay, so I don't know why they didn't implement it. Speaking of design, the first and arguably largest misstep in the development of the Twin Snakes is the difficulty and scoring. Twin Snakes still does not disqualify you from Big Boss rank for using stealth camo, bandana, Soliton, even easy Soliton on extreme. How was this not fixed? You can still play extreme on easy mode? What the fuck? How was that extreme? Listen, I hate to say it, but what were they thinking? You can't introduce European Extreme. Granted, it's not European Extreme per se, but only based on its conditions. And then say, yeah, you can use stealth camo and infinite ammo and it won't count against you. A great idea, dude. You've invalidated all the new obstacles you've introduced. You've invalidated all the redesigned levels, all the reforged floor plans, almost everything you've done with this stupid little change. If someone wants to perform in this game to the highest degree set by its designers, whatever they're capable of doing without stealth camo is, according to you, just as meritorious as someone walking through the whole game while invisible. Not a good look. In fact, in hindsight, I probably should have taken off more points for such an error. Full disclosure, I decided to play through the game with the bandana, just to see how different it would be. I'll admit, not a fully controlled empirical experiment, but I did pay the price, since apparently the Vulcan Raven bug in the Dolphin emulator I was forced to use, because I don't own a GameCube, is still present, meaning I had to restart the entire game and run back up to the second Vulcan Raven fight without the bandana in my inventory, since there's no way to remove it, and any infinite number seems to cause this game to freeze up on Dolphin. Hard locking you here. So I started a new game with the stealth camo and infinite ammo, because let's be honest, I'm not going to waste your fucking time not putting out a video that I should have done weeks ago just because I made a stupid mistake. Then I played up to the second Raven fight, beat him, and played the rest of the game with no stealth camo. So, in a way, I do have an idea of what the game is like when played to the highest degree, and it is complete nonsense. You can just walk everywhere with no challenge. The bosses are the only hard part of the game, since infinite ammo and stealth camo don't save your health bar. Really, I should have been way harsher on the original Metal Gear Solid, seeing how much stealth camo breaks the game. Infinite ammo doesn't even break the game as much as allowing stealth camo does. All this about allowing stealth and bandana is made worse when the new M9 is intended to have no reserve ammo. Unlike the SOCOM 45, which lets you stock tons of rounds, the M9 gets one magazine, and that's all you have to work with for the whole game. Of course, you can resupply, but it is very hard to find M9 ammo. So clearly they understood the gravity of first-person aiming and wanted to balance it by forcing you to make every shot count. Yet, if they wanted to make every shot count, why would they still allow you to use the bandana? It doesn't make sense, especially since in Metal Gear Solid 2, they score against shots taken. So basically, I just said, whatever. I played MGS without any special items. I'll do this one with the bandana, just to see how it affects the game. I'm not going to praise the game based on stealth camo use. We both know that would be disingenuous. To the mechanics and level design, not to the scoring or overall game. Because if the scoring allows you to just discard confronting basically every encounter in the game, then yeah, we do have to take points away. Regardless of the effect the bandana has on this, the M9's small reserve and sparing pickups are sound balance decisions in the stead of breakable suppressors and scoring against shot count. It still forces you to save it for when you absolutely need it, most of those cases being the bosses. There are other improvements, though. One side effect of them is that the thermal goggles and other similar items no longer emerge as the bespoke adventure game items they used to be, but as ways to enhance the now present action mechanics. They did not rectify the issue with diazepam, here called pentazemin, being a pointless obstacle to player skill. It's a bigger problem here now since both Sniper Wolf fights need to be done non-lethally using the PSG-1T. Health is an entirely different situation in Twin Snakes. At certain points, it will fully regenerate, and you begin with the max possible HP bar rather than upgrading as you progress. This is an issue since bosses don't do more damage, and the max difficulty is European Extreme, meaning that the only possible persistent damage you can receive is from bosses. There's no management of health. There's no need to restart a boss or reload a save if you took too much damage at a certain point. And there's no situation in which your poor decision making with life can come back to get you. This is probably one of Twin Snake's biggest errors in mechanical design, as persistent health was a great part of the original Metal Gear Solid. The health regeneration also allowed developers to get really comfortable with basically forcing you to take damage by making it near unavoidable in certain cases. The 3 Genome Soldier attacks are like this, and it's infuriating. It's not good design at all. To rectify the problem with regeneration, however, the game has bleeding, which doesn't fully solve the issue, but does bandage it, shall we say. Bleeding is a gradual loss of health that happens once you drop below a certain HP threshold, meaning that poor performance during a boss fight causes essentially a death spiral, because in order to stop bleeding, you either have to have a bandage, which is unfortunate adventure design carryover, or you have to lie prone. And going prone means you can't look up to shoot back at any vulnerable points or move in order to sustain your life. That is a good integration of action mechanics into the game. Bandages are still good. They're not total adventure game design because bandages stop the bleeding wherever your health is. They don't reset your health back to 25%. What they should have done, however, is to make bleeding start at below 50% health and caused greater and faster health loss. I've been ragging on Twin Snakes for a few minutes now, and ironically, right after I call it awesome, too, right? I say, yeah, Twin Snakes is awesome. Then I just leap into ripping the game apart mechanically. We need to talk about what it did make better, besides the stealth action mechanics. Solid Snake now has a new control scheme, which includes diving and hanging, and the game no longer runs like dog water. It does support, by default, 60 FPS on the original release. A ton of the original Metal Gear Solid's unresponsiveness and unreliability came from it running at such a low frame rate. Movement and actions are made very snappy now that we run at 60 FPS. There are 2 issues here that were introduced which were not present prior. I don't know if this is due to the Dolphin emulator or something, but there's a delay before the weapon wheel opens after you select it. It's not instant anymore. Why not? You could justify it from a difficulty or commitment standpoint where you have to commit to opening the weapon wheel before you make a change in your selected item, but still it mires the improvement made, and I cannot be positive this is part of the game design itself or if it's just a result of Dolphin, so I can't really be sure with that one. What I can be sure is intentional on the developer's part is that the movement, the basic back and forth movement, is now more messed up than it was before. How movement originally worked on MGS was that D-pad movement forced you to make arcing turns. This mechanic was utilized once ever in the Ocelot battle and virtually never again. And in the Ocelot fight, it's basically an exploit of that type of movement, which leads me to believe it was not an intentional game design decision. So why is it replicated for analog movement in Twin Snakes when it was potentially a mistake in the original game? In Twin Snakes, there is no way to pivot during fast movement at all! Look at this. It's completely inexcusable. You have to wait and tap the opposite direction to pivot. You can't just move the analog control like you do with every other game in the known universe. Why not? What is it about Twin Snakes mechanics or level design that would accommodate or require such a design decision? Nothing. There is positively no excuse. Thankfully, this criminal game design doesn't interrupt the overall gameplay that much. This is a gross misstep inside net improvements. Because I'm going to be honest, yeah, it's bad, but it doesn't quite affect the gameplay that much, thankfully. But it is bad, and they really shouldn't have done it. Another improvement is the close quarters combat. With the original MGS, there was a massive issue during boss fights being what I described as off-axis. This was when you weren't fully lined up with the hitbox of the enemy you were attacking, and your hitboxes would inexplicably not make contact. This was unpredictable due to the amount of different positions you could be in relative to a boss, due to how much CQC bosses moved, and it could happen to you at any time without any humanly identifiable pattern. This meant that in certain situations where an incomplete combo, 1 or 2 hits out of 3, would trigger an enemy counterattack, it was better to just wait for the boss to enter a different state. In Twin Snakes, all hitbox and hurtbox issues have been, for the most part, resolved. Everything is consistent, accurate, you could even say solid. Okay. Alright, that's fucking stupid. I want to cut that out, but I still like it, so I'm going to keep it in. Massive improvement, especially combined with consistency in first-person aiming, whereas previously all encounters involved shooting as many bullets as possible into the target until it dies. Now, headshots are a mechanic which naturally develops into player skill, even more so with the addition of quick-draw aiming, where equipping your gun and immediately going into first-person aiming snaps you to a target's upper chest. All the action mechanics mesh together, and that is just good intuitive design. Before we go into the level design, the last improvement I want to comment on, I want to appreciate, is in the AI. The bad guys, the normal ones at least, have much more acute senses and can now actually look up. Now they can hear and see you from far away, so the whole game isn't just a cakewalk outside of a few small segments. Stealth is a real part of the game. It is the other side of the coin of gameplay, whereas it was just supplementary to the little adventure activities in the original. Everything about avoiding enemy senses is juiced up in Twin Snakes. It is robust and integrated. There are multiple ways to resolve every encounter, and the encounters themselves are also more common and consistent. I even found a consistent use of the box in one case. This is certainly a net improvement. This is what remakes are for. Let us begin with the level design. Briefing sucks, by the way. It's not nearly as good as the original since there's no Shinkawa art. You start off in the cargo dock, same as the original. The stupid pipe is still there, but you can also go under the big object, whatever this is. I don't know if it's like a water heater filter or something. I have no idea. There are 2 patrols doing their rounds about the 4 stacks of containers. There's a puddle of water near the guardrail here that'll get you noticed if you move across it too quickly. But if you start moving the moment the cutscene stops, you can make it to the lockers next to the elevator. And after that, the procedure is the exact same. The guy comes down and you slip right past him. You start out at the gates again, across from the helipad. Patrols have once again been upgraded, and there's a guy who can see you if you try to move out from behind cover either the wrong way or too early. I decided for this playthrough that I wasn't going to follow strats from a challenge run recording, except unless I got really stuck, since I've played the original and wanted to see how that informs my approach to Twin Snakes. In this case, the strategy can be similar, but not exactly. You can't take the exact same route due to the patrol on the left, but you have to wait a second and take it slow crossing over here. Make sure to get the SOCOM though on the outside, otherwise you can't get the goggles on the inside. They're both pretty important, so don't miss them. You don't really need chaff this time around since you can get it later, and you can get the SOCOM suppressor later and take out cameras that way. Either way, go hit a right, slowly move up the stairs and wait until this guy turns around and then sneak behind him into the air duct. The stupid air duct part is still here. I don't know why. It should have been removed, but it wasn't. You drop down onto a loud walkway, and if you cross over, you will be seen by the enemy, meaning you can't just stroll over to the elevator like you did in the original game. What I did here was I went into the far room quietly to get the thermal goggles, then returned to the balcony going loud to get the closer patrol's attention so that he wouldn't see me when I jumped down. I leapt over the balcony, spammed the elevator, and moved down to the first floor. If you forget or don't care about the thermal goggles, you can just jump over right away, I guess. although you'd still have to avoid that guard on the right, closer to the hangar exit on the ground floor. They weren't smart enough to add any dudes outside the cells on the first floor, so it's the same pointless trek into the air ducts again. The cell rush fight in this game is harder and easier than the original in different ways. The difficulty is, instead of managing aggro, being able to quickly draw and accurately fire your weapon. If you can't hit headshots, the fight is over. And if you can't do it quickly, it's still over. The window to drop the first guy before you take any damage is tiny. Like Wild West Showdown quick draw speed. There's not much aggro management, if any. All of these guys are zeroed in on murdering you and are going to completely ignore Meryl. She's just there to help this time, and barely 99% of this fight is you being able to use the first-person aiming mechanics. The result is, surprisingly, that the player can exert more control over the situation and prevent all possible damage if they are good enough. Is the boss fight good? It's good enough. Is it improved? Yes. Even if it requires less movement and aggro control, I argue that the aggression of the enemy was proportionately increased, and the idea of raw mechanics still preserved in the fact that the fight is now purely first-person aiming. Take the elevator downstairs to the armory. There's nothing new in the cells and nobody on the 4th floor below either. Get the C4, blow up the walls, and go fight Ocelot. Why did we need to do all this? It's just as unnecessary as before, and it should have been cut out. Or they should have just added patrols. Why are there no patrols during the first time through the armory? The Ocelot fight in Twin Snakes is infamous for being made really easy. Is it easy? Yeah. Is it easy to 3-shot him? Yes, but not significantly easier than 3-shotting him with nades. The nade tactic on the original is very obtuse and counterintuitive to learn, but once you get it down, it's not significantly harder than 3-shotting him is here in Twin Snakes. For Twin Snakes, the tactic is walk a little bit closer, quick draw your M9, fire once at his head, then move the long way around to the right towards his position, turn left. If you timed it right, he'll stand still and fire or say one of his lines. If you did it wrong, he'll fire twice. Do not quick draw your M9. Draw it, aim at his head, wait a second, and then fire. I don't know what it is. If you shoot too expediently, it doesn't work, but fire a shot at his head. He'll move to your left and stand opposite to you on the other pillar. Fire at the steam pipe, and then end the fight with another dart to his head. Do I wish the fight was harder? Yes. It is worse than the original. In spite of this, it must be declared that anyone who is not evaluating the original Ocelot fight based on the grenade strategy, yet is saying that it is somehow better than this, is incorrect. As in terms of the fruits of game design, defeating Ocelot with 3 shots to the head aimed from first person is far more meritorious than the incompetent original shooting design. Now, what they should have done here is enhance Ocelot's aggression the same way they did in the Cell Rush. He's a cowboy. He needs to threaten to outshoot you, not sit still before the fight starts so you can get a free shot in. He needs to quick draw. He needs to be able to damage you fast, such that you're incentivized to be a quicker and better shot than him. What they also could have done is involve the first person leaning by alternating ricochet shots with straight shots more often, but really, this isn't my job to advise them. It's their job to make better decisions to begin with. Exit the basement to the right, avoid the patrol, box 1 is in the corner room, wait for the guards to make their rounds, move up, take the elevator upstairs, and call Meryl. Then you got to do the waiting thing again, because there's nothing to get in the tank hangar this time. The box was back in the armory. Why can't you just go outside? This sort of nincompoop level design ought to have been discarded along with this silly little claymore section. You should just exit the hangar and immediately be thrown into the tank battle. The tank battle has a familiar beginning. Take out your chaff, get the stun grenades to the right, and start tossing them in. That is the whole fight. The only additional mechanic is maybe tranquilizing the gunner. That could be easier, but I didn't do it. As you potentially have a much larger reserve of stuns and never any darts to spare, I can't see that as viable in the long run, but it is a plausible solution in this case. Seeing as the bandana is completely licit for big boss runs, what you can do here is toss a chaff, run over to the tank, and spam stuns down the hatch until the fight is over. There is very little to this fight now that you're given a little assist to toss him in. Instead of changing the way the boss works and not designing it around throwing grenades at a small target using analog sticks with no way to see where the grenade is going to go, they just made the target bigger and gave it some magnetism. Technically, they did fix the hurt boxes, but they certainly didn't fix the boss being bad. Now, using the M9 would come up in this situation. It is a solution to the grenade spam problem, but if they wanted that to come out, they needed to mesh and weave it into the gameplay such that it was the sole possibility. You can't have it both ways. One thing they did improve is the aggro management. The tank seems to move a lot more, so being able to circle around for a toss properly is a little more of an ordeal. Is the boss good? No. Is it better than it used to be? For net quality, it's about the same. It's just bad in different ways. Maybe it is a little worse. Once you enter the warhead hangar, dive and crawl under the gate, run straight until the balcony patrol notices you, then equip the cardboard box and remain motionless beneath the stairs. Follow the balcony guy as he returns to his post, watch the camera, and jump in the elevator. On the first floor, go straight through the double doors, trank the guy, or avoid him, and get the Nikita. The patrol inside the room is slightly more lenient than the original game, but it's compensated for by the fact that the other rifleman actually leaves the bathroom and starts his routine. The whole Nikita adventure needed to be removed. It needed to be completely gone, taken out. It needed to go bye-bye. All right, it needed to go bye-bye. Gray Fox is better. I'll tell you that right now. In everything except hit registry, it is virtually the same. All Twin Snakes did was make CQC fighting consistent. Now, instead of randomly missing your hits, at most, you'll miss your kick. They can't be said to have fully patched the problem, but they did make it better. Okay, they did remove also the silly end section where Fox goes nuts, but they also needed to remove the silly beginning section where he just lets you hit him. This is the exact same boss as it was in the original, and it is left as a missed opportunity to use the new mechanics, such as diving, to make Gray Fox much more erratic and aggressive. It's a good fight and marginally better than the original. I just wished it had made you move more, because the original, obviously you can't move because Gray Fox moves too much for you to be able to avoid him. But again, with the new diving mechanics, you could introduce huge attacks that you could be forced to dive out of the way of and maybe make him home in on you less. So you could be forced to dive perpendicular to his attack or something. You can't appraise something on what it isn't. You have to appraise something on what it is. And what the Gray Fox fight is great. The next Meryl part is stupid. I don't need to explain this. You should just teleport straight to the Psycho Mantis boss fight. This is inexcusable design. Psycho Mantis is one of the most obnoxiously designed bosses I've ever seen. This fight sucks. The controller port gimmick is still here, dude. Why can't we just have a boss fight with Psycho Mantis? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to switch the controller? It's especially excruciating on Dolphin, but I won't hold that against it. Way to ruin all the goodwill you had by not removing the red tape the player has to go through just to play the game he bought. The way this fight should have been designed from the beginning is that Psycho Mantis uses, let's say, telekinesis or something on those mask statues that you are able to shoot. By the way, only if you die and hit continue multiple times. Certain mechanics being locked behind deaths, that's ridiculous. That is appalling. That's still in there. Either way, he should have used telekinesis on those statues, then you shoot the statues, and then the fight starts. No port switching, no gimmicks, none of that crap. Now, the problem here is that the way Psycho Mantis deals with your first-person aiming is basically by turning it off. You can't shoot him at all because he does this remote viewing thing where he shows you yourself and then you're no longer able to hold down the shoot button to aim. And this is the perfectly incorrect way to solve the problem of first-person aiming in this fight. Wherein first-person aiming defeats Mantis's original routine, forcing you to move away and disrupt your angle of attacks, Mantis needs to not turn off your method of attack, but fortify his own defenses and evasiveness. Instead of simply turning off one of the core game mechanics, he could use telepathically controlled objects to block your shots, throw you off, or force you to move around more. This would also be a different and superior means of disorientation than the stupid black screen gimmick. The other mortal flaw with the Twin Snakes battle, besides this remote viewing, turn off a mechanic of the game, is that it is just not dangerous enough. Psycho Mantis's attacks are not nearly as aggressive and are not boosted to do proportional damage to your health. The player can essentially brute force his way through the confrontation, which is what I did. The fight is neither in itself meritoriously designed, nor does it qualify as an enhancement of the original. The cave is exactly the same. Just run all the way through, punch Meryl, and get the doggy box. What's annoying about this is they mock you with this broken wall here, implying you can knock it down with C4 and run through. But when you walk up to plant the charge, it gives you an error sound. Why is this here, bro? The mine section is also stupid and needed to be taken out. You should just go straight to the cutscene. Thankfully, two of the issues with the Sniper Wolf fight have been resolved. The first being the backtracking, which is partially fixed with the PSG-1T, and the second being the safe spot, which as far as I can tell is just gone. The diazepam or pentasmin thing is still here. I don't think the leaning to dodge thing works anymore, but that would actually help here because you're not forced to get up and move. The whole fight is just flawed at the fundamental level. It's not like the hit registry is off. In fact, she has some of the most precise hit registry in the game, and it's not like the controls aren't responsive. It's just that this stupid fight is so boring. It doesn't demand enough of the player. It does not physically engage you. Literally, it does not physically engage your hands as it should. The benefit of it, at least, is that sniping itself is slightly less horrific in this game, since the game inherently features first-person aiming. The fight is not good, and I would say still bottom 3 or close to it. The only thing saving it is that the PSG-1T required to beat it is back in the first floor basement of the Warhead building, although they could have just changed the game to not require any backtracking here at all. Recall that in my appraisal of the original game, I questioned why the Nikita couldn't just be used. Well, the most obvious answer would be that it might not have enough fuel to actually reach Sniper Wolf anyways, much less wiggle its way up to the mezzanine. In reality, the Nikita is outright disabled in this fight. You can't use it. Why not? Sniper Wolf could easily just shoot down the rocket if you make an attempt, since Vulcan Raven can shoot it down and he's clearly not as good a shot as Sniper Wolf. Developer veto of the player at the input level just shows a lack of creativity. Like, how is this fight so bad still? Come on, dude. The torture sequence is stupid. I already spoke on how this needs to be taken out and just cut up into cutscenes and codec calls. They don't have the guts to do that, I guess. Once you exit the torture cell, just go straight to the hangar. The snowy field now has additional troops, so returning is now a full stealth ordeal, not just a walk in the park. Unfortunately, though, the Warhead storage, tank hangar, and basement don't have different patrol patterns, so the procedure is the exact same for them as it is for the Wolf Cave. If you want to see a case where infinite ammo surprisingly does not break the game, it is here in the Ascent of the Communications Tower. Unlike MGS1 proper, Twin Snake stun grenades have a tiny area of effect, so you can't just drop them intermittently while climbing the staircase. You're caught between a rock and a hard place. If you stop moving to shoot the guys above, you get hit by the guys below. If you don't stop, the guys above hit you in the stead of the guys below. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's my understanding that this is incredibly difficult to beat with no damage. The speed at which you're attacked by soldiers spawning in might as well be considered force damage. It's just too fast. This could have been solved by narrowing the possible zone of travel along the stairway so that Snake and the soldiers are always on one axis, making it more reliable to shoot them if they are to be fast. Otherwise, there's just no way to justify forcing first-person aiming if it's so impossible to hit them before they fire. I just barely made it out of this one, and I did have to use a ration here. Repelling is still here. It sucks. Take it out. I already said all this. The encounter on the catwalk is also present, and some sanity has been injected since now these soldiers only take one dart to the head to be slept. I try to avoid the chopper as you go to grab the stinger. This whole map segment should be one story with a door on each end, and the far door should just let you right out into the Hind D battle. Like, this whole ascend the other comm tower with the stupid cameras that you need to destroy it's idiotic. This is not real gameplay. Just take it out. The helicopter ordeal is one of the better bosses in the game. The lock-on problems I described in the original are no longer here. The aiming is snappier, and being able to do this all at 60 FPS is much appreciated. How many times am I going to have to say it, though? This boss needed to be more aggressive and faster. It seems like it's been slowed down for some reason, although this is possibly just the fact that I've already played it, so I perceived it as less insurmountable because I was able to more quickly hit it with stingers. It does seem, from my evaluation, like it was made slightly less aggressive. My real problem is that radar is permitted on extreme. Why is that? It just tells you exactly where the Hind D is. It devalues the previously necessary efforts of the player to detect the chopper and maintain an idea of its position mentally, even when you're forced to take cover. The fight becomes more of a chore in this way, which is not a good reminder on how every non-boss part of the original game felt. Is it good? Yes. Is it improved? In itself, yes, but not given the other changes to the game. I can't be sure if they actually turn down the aggression or if I'm just better. The stinger itself is more consistent and reliable, but the permission of the radar ruins the other part of the fight's difficulty. I did replay it when I had to start a new game due to that bug I mentioned, and beating it without radar is much more fun, though not necessary. So I won't be adding many, if any, points for that. Anyways, going down the tower again, I saw a strategy where Snake could just dive down the stairs and avoid damage, which is a good use of the new mechanics, but it doesn't change that these cameras and the whole stairway thing to begin with is stupid and originally had nothing to do with this core stealth mechanics. Only now in the remake is it wrapped into the greater stealth action design with first-person aiming and diving. The stealth team encounter has reminded me that all three of the rifleman fights start with an almost entirely unavoidable instance of damage. In this case, I tried moving in every direction. I tried quick drawing. I tried firing without first-person aim. I tried everything. You cannot avoid being kicked at the beginning of this fight. I eventually returned to the approach used in the original, which is just running around and shooting, made slightly more difficult since the M9 is not fully automatic and can't drop someone instantly unless you aim in first person. I did use only rounds, so this is hypothetically possible without the bandana. It's arguably worse than the original due to that instance of force or nigh impossible to avoid damage, but in practice the resolution is the same. The problem is that it's too unreasonable to use first-person aiming on this one, which is counterintuitive, poor design. Next up is the second Sniper Wolf battle. It's marginally better than the first. Opposite of the original game, since she moves more and you actually have to find and track her across the tree line and occasionally across a snowbank, but they needed more trees and more snowbanks, and she needed to run way faster because as it is, she's essentially jogging from spot to spot asking you to shoot her. It's really not a good fight at all. Second Sniper Wolf is definitely better now that scoring disqualifies you from using the Nikita, since now you actually have to fight the boss. Whoa, dude, what a concept. Imagine that. Drop a chaff or rush through the connector. The troop setup here is similar to the original. Since you don't need more than a few M9 rounds for the funicular attack right after this segment, I'd say you're safe to drop these foos, then throw a chaff, jump the ledge for the body armor, and crawl into the pipe room, run over to the funicular. Also, I don't know what it is about the cargo funicular, but in the cutscene, there are 4 guys, yet in the fight, there are 3. My hypothesis is that some extra footage of Snake defeating the first guy was edited out for some reason, since the 4 guys are also all in front of Snake at the end of their introduction, yet at the beginning of the fight, one of them is behind him. As is the trend with rifleman rush fights, you basically have to take this first instance of damage before you start whatever routine you've got in mind. Mine was to just run around shooting again, at least when I was replaying, and I just barely got through that one, yet I did get through it on my first try. On the original save, the one where I got hard locked, right after this, I did a quick draw headshot strategy, which, if you're as bad at aiming as I am, is going to take a few tries to get right. It's, again, a counterintuitive design. Not really that great, though it could have been. This is the point where I got hard locked by a bug.
Uh-oh.
Exception.
An error occurred.
Since I had been using the bandana the entire game, and dolphin breaks or something if you have an infinite number or some kind during the second Vulcan Raven fight, I had to start a new game and play all the way up to this point. Regardless, the strategy is somewhat similar to the original battle, but instead of the Nikita, you obviously have to use the non-lethal PSG-1T. You also aren't necessarily managing his aggro directly, so much as you are taking the most advantage of the duration of his aggro. Turn down, take a right, and move to the last shipping container in the row. Go prone, take out your PSG-1T and body armor, spam his head until he turns towards the center of the map, then cross over to the opposite end of the row and do the same thing when he turns the corner back to you. Some people I've seen do this in one go by locking him in place through aggro, but I'm not sure how to do that, to be honest. Either way, this is better than the original since the design involves the player to a greater degree mechanically, though there is arguably, depending on the execution, less aggro control. In spite of that, aiming and controlling the sniper scope as you hit his head is much, much better than just being expected to spam the Nikita to the death, even if that did conform to the mechanics of the original game. It's somewhat worse off than the original for having a true safe spot, but this fight is superior since the scoring forces you to take the better implemented non-lethal route. Same with Sniper Wolf. The bridge to Rex's lair is way better than the original. Now, there are 2 patrols with intersecting lines of sight rather than a quadrillion security cameras. It is a really simple solution. It forces the player to either use inventive stealth if they don't want to use ammo, or engage with the core action mechanics of the game if they intend to use the M9, like I did. The same goes for Rex's lair. Now there are actually soldiers patrolling the map that you have to use stealth or action mechanics to defeat? Yo, that's crazy. Imagine a stealth action game with enemy encounters. I suppose Kojima didn't, at least not the first time around. Rex's lair also makes it very hard to set up shots on the enemy by assigning their patrols to routes which don't change elevation down so that you can hit him, and are always at odds with the player's ability to drop them from entry. It's a little worse on the return since they have no cover from above, but still better than not being there. Now we get to the worst part of the game, the PAL key. Is it really that bad in Twin Snakes? Not anymore, since picking it back up is now just better mechanically due to hanging and the new patrols and first-person aiming. In this case, my key got stolen by the rat. Mechanically, I think trying to catch a rat by aiming and shooting at it is actually better designed than walking back and forth through a gutter hoping to find an object. The stupid cameras are still in the terminal room. What is the merit in having them there? Right after this, though, is where the truly amazing improvement is. Instead of having to backtrack to the freezer or all the way back to the boiler room, they hit a pair of pipes off to the right of Rex, one hot and one cold. If you go all the way around the top level balcony, you can drop down to them, and it forces you to use more of the level's surface area, since there's no way to get back up from this spot. Best solution would be to simply add more unique levels and not force you to backtrack to the old ones, only to wait while prone in them. But at least you're spared the total waste of time and effort in the original design. Thank goodness. The Rex fight. They really ruined a good thing they had here. With the larger Stinger lock-on, it could have been good. Even the sticky lock-on used here, where it's hard to switch targets after you get tone, could have, and was probably intended to, emphasize good positioning and a more acute use of FPA. Yet there's a silver bullet passing through the meaty target of the design. Rex cancels its own attacks now, which completely devalues spacing and movement and aggro control, because you can just force it to cancel whatever attack you don't want it to make before it makes it. Furthermore, the radius of the missile explosions is too small. If you want a missile to blow up with an area of effect that tiny, you need to make them all move lightning fast. Okay? The laser and gun attacks are about the same, though. All of these, though, are robbed of their worth as designed due to the fact that instead of deftly weaving and spacing your way through Rex's attacks while maintaining proper aggro control and proper positioning to hit his weak points, you can just force Rex to cancel any undesirable attack by moving backwards or closer. It's really a tragedy, because even if other bosses might be made a little worse in some respects, or even overall worse, like Psycho Mantis, Mantis's gimmicks being turned up to 11 does not betray or contradict the fact that he is a gimmick boss. But Rex canceling his own attacks does betray that fundamental design. The cherry on top is that they made the cutscenes like 50 times as cool. Grey Fox doesn't lose all his aura like a homo this time, but the boss itself just sucks, so it's all a waste. Is it a good fight? No, actually, and it's probably the worst change of the entire game, especially since Metal Gear Rex was the best part and the namesake of the original Metal Gear Solid. The Liquid boss battle is, in direct contrast, probably the most improved boss. The hit registration improvements have allowed Liquid to be made way more mobile. In the first phase, he doesn't just stand still and wait for you to attack. He moves and tries to get you to waste your time while the bomb explodes. Not to say he's the best at it, he can't fully run out the clock. I mean, that would be really cool. If he played so lame that he could actually time you out, that would actually be impressive, especially if they added a diving ability to him. Like, that would be sick. But again, can't judge the game on what it isn't, only on what it is. So he is at least active now in the first phase. He actually runs to avoid your punches. The one change for the worst is that his counter punches in the second phase have been made too slow, which is unfortunate because he's also more aggressive with his football tackle. So they really should have just made both of those more aggressive. Could have been way better. One more problem is that he's a little too easy to loop in certain sections. Like, if you get him on the ledge, he doesn't counterattack you fast enough. So unlike the original, you can just loop him there sometimes. It doesn't always stay that way because he does move when he gets up, but that could have been fixed with a little more playtesting. In fact, pretty much all the problems with the original and this Twin Snakes could have been fixed if they just playtested the games more. But regardless, he's more mobile, he's a little bit more dangerous in the third phase, and the hit registration has been fixed, so yeah, it is the most improved and one of the better boss fights in the game. The final chase is not much improved. Definitely not as much as it should have been. But the beginning, at least, doesn't make you utterly defenseless with 0 iframes when you get in the Jeep. At the beginning, you can hide behind these barrels. Unfortunately, you can't fight back because you don't have your pistol, obviously. When Meryl gets in the Jeep, you have to do a mad dash over to her, then take out the barrels first if you can. The tunnel isn't nearly as tough as it used to be, but it still has your health persist throughout the whole ride, meaning you can't really afford to take any damage, much less drop below roughly 30%, since you'll start bleeding. And in the escape, you can't stop the bleeding because you can't go prone. Liquid takes slightly longer to aim, but the M60 isn't made into hit scan for this game, so it doesn't matter. It's just not reasonable to hit him through these pillars. Bleeding, ironically, ended up contributing to me finishing the game with 1% HP again, and it's cool because of the bleeding. Once you start, you can't stop because you can't go prone. You just have to keep going and win, which is sick. That's a great mechanic. The escape is marginally better overall, but only due to the gross negatives which have been removed from it, and really the only improvements to it are not direct improvements to the sequence, but only to the game in general. So, in what ways is Twin Snakes superior to the original? Of course, it is better overall, since each level, each stealth section outside of the bosses, does actually have stealth and demand the player engage with those mechanics, whereas the original was for the most part an adventure game with some action elements. Here, everything takes place within a stealth action framework rather than an adventure one, and now that the encounter rate is increased, the devs achieved a much higher molarity game. Despite purifying the game, making it denser in essence, they forgot one element central to the identity of the original: the intensity. Metal Gear Solid is an intense game, and it was made so by persistent health and by putting the player against high damage, highly aggressive, durable enemies. In doing what they could to fix the technical missteps of the game, such as running at a low frame rate, lack of responsiveness, poor aiming systems, an annoying fake and gay continue system, fake and gay hit registration, they've failed to proportionately tune up the difficulty in turn. Would I rather replay this than the original? Yes. This is a much better experience than the original piece of shit. But while succeeding in not stooping to the lows of the original, it failed to hit the highs. The Rex boss fight is ruined. The Hind D boss fight is made trivial by the permission of Radar on Extreme. Ocelot isn't aggressive enough. The tank assists your nade tossing. In the action half, this game just does not stand up. Metal Gear Solid, in either iteration, sucks as an action game. So it is better, as is the function of a remake, to have Twin Snakes be at least a good stealth game. It's just a shame that neither of them could be good action games as well, or at least a good stealth action game. The silver bullet, if there is one, in the heart of Twin Snakes is that the scoring and difficulty were not fixed. In the original, to get Big Boss, you were clearly expected to play Extreme twice to get the stealth camouflage and the infinite ammo bandana, then do your Big Boss attempt. But that is stupid. Tuning a game's difficulty with cheats in mind means circumventing a human being's capacity to play your own game, thereby completely nullifying any merit in the designs you had for your gameplay. The same issue is in Peace Walker, but in Peace Walker it is much less pronounced, if at all, since the average completion time for levels in that game is like a minute and 30 seconds at most. And only certain high-level extra-op bosses are so improperly balanced that you need infinite ammo on max damage guns to defeat them. To have an hour-plus length game, not just missions, but a whole game, require you to beat it twice before attempting a perfect score with cheats is appallingly idiotic. In Twin Snakes, they seemingly turned down the difficulty in some ways, or rather failed to turn it up, so it's possible for a somewhat experienced player to do it without the bandana or stealth camo. It always has been. I'm not saying it's an unreasonable task for a well-practiced player in either the original or Twin Snakes. It's obviously very doable, actually, but is it desirable? Was it designed to be done without the infinity bandana and stealth camo? No to all of those. The scoring is so lenient as to now permit radar on extreme, which is another game breaker nobody talks about, because no one actually plays these games on the intended difficulty. Whenever you see a review, no one is playing extreme, no one is playing European extreme, no one is trying to max out the difficulty and actually get in to the nitty-gritty of the gameplay in Metal Gear Solid. Every normie reviewer breezes through it on a low difficulty and acts like they actually played it. Sorry, bro, you didn't. This issue of non-experience, non-appraisal, and non-appreciation becomes ingrained and fundamental to the game when the developers, with the scoring system, proclaim that the guy who surfed through high difficulty, being extreme or European extreme, with Type 1 radar, stealth camo, and the bandana, deserves big boss rank just as much as the guy who did it without them. Ridiculous. The bosses have to be ranked now. And considering the changes, the ranking is going to be very different from the original. From worst to best, Escape Liquid, Psycho Mantis, Sniper Wolf, The Tank, Ocelot, Sniper Wolf second, Elevator Team, Funicular Team, Falcon Raven, Hind D, Cell Rush, Metal Gear Rex, Liquid, Gray Fox. Gray Fox and Liquid are the best since they take the pure action mechanic of CQC and actually apply it properly with counterattacks and evasion. Liquid being the most improved by taking that same counter-hit approach from Gray Fox into an arena with higher movement, emphasizing your placement instead of the boss's. Rex, I still placed higher than the Cell Rush since, despite being worse in some aspects, doesn't have any instances of nigh unavoidable damage. Hind D being lower than the Cell Rush since it's ruined by radar completely. The other two rifleman teams are lower due to both force damage and the lack of accommodation for first-person aiming, despite being designed for it. Sniper Wolf, Psycho Mantis, and Escape Liquid are the lowest since they all lack aggression and all still have stupid gimmicks like pentasm or controller switching. Let us assume that the act structure is the same as in the original. The first act is from the start to Sniper Wolf, the second from Sniper Wolf to her death, the third from Sniper Wolf's death to the end of the game. Now that the second and third act involve just as much stealth as the first by percentage, we finally get to appraise them by the quality of that stealth rather than on the binary presence of it. Rex's lair, entering from the floor and not the terminal room, has one of the best map designs in the game. Yet so does the warhead storage, which is present in both Act 1 and 2. With the map changes, we've actually got less stealth in Act 1 than in Act 2, about equal with Act 3, and the quality of stealth isn't as good either. Act 3 still has the best average quality of bosses, Act 1 the worst with the exception of the Cell Rush. My appraisal lands with them being best to worst, third act, second act, first act. So the second act got better, leaving the first act the least improved. What makes Twin Snakes awesome is that, unlike Metal Gear Solid, it is a game that is meant to be played. What makes Twin Snakes not so awesome is that it is built on the level structure of a game that wasn't. It needed to completely revamp the campaign, completely change all the accidents of the narrative to accommodate a totally new set of maps and or levels. You can't have leftovers like the Force Nikita section, the repelling section, the Palki, the terrible backtracking without changing patrols, the empty sections like the funicular, the hallway in front of the detention cells, the hallways underneath the warhead storage, even the comms tower is a remnant of an adventure game. They needed design that conformed to substance, not the original. It's disappointing they had 2 to 3 years to think over and appreciate how bad the original Metal Gear Solid's level design was, but instead of truly changing the essence to conform to function, they just recreated most of the errors of the original game. But the controls are awesome. The shooting design is awesome. The fact that there's stealth throughout the game now is awesome. Okay, listen, this game is way more awesome than the original. the stealth action fusion itself is awesome, okay? Another thing that makes Twin Snakes awesome is the cutscenes. Unlike the original game, whose cutscenes were 85% head bobbing and or talking over stock footage, Twin Snakes makes them exciting, cool, and epic. Check out these comparisons.
Who the hell?
Look, Snake! Daylight! We're gonna crash! Look, Snake! Daylight! We're gonna crash!
Ryuhei Kitamura is a better cutscene director than whoever Kojima got for, so far, every other game. The only game with outright superior cutscenes so far is probably none of them. None of them are as action-packed, well-scored, concisely edited, and cool as these. Even the silly ones end up coming out better than the original. There are only two cutscenes which are worse. The first being when Meryl gets sharded. The editing makes these takes too lengthy, and the tension is sucked out. And the content of the scene pushes your suspension of disbelief just a little too much. The other one is Solid and Liquid on top of Metal Gear Rex. There's too much ambient lighting. It doesn't recreate the image of Liquid in low-key, high-contrast lighting, where he's this pale figure among ruinous fires. That's gone, unfortunately. Oh, and one more thing. The voice acting. How did that turn out? Not every character is better, but each is a different interpretation of the same idea. The only one that I would say is drier in a bad way is the Colonel. His performance has less energy, and I cannot tell exactly why. It's not that much worse than the original, though, if at all. I don't know what people were complaining about. Does a military guy need to be an emotional little girl or something? Naomi has changed from a flustered sort of undercover personification to, I would say, someone cold as ice. People say that she's not emoting, but why should she? Maybe if I told you before your performance, okay, you've been planning a murder for 2 years and you're gonna watch this guy die in agony, would you be like, oh, I need to be a silly little doctor with a British accent? No, I don't think you would. I don't think you would. And why would Mei Ling, a girl raised in the United States speaking English, have such a thick Chinese accent? The accents did not make the performances good. And to be honest, an accent doesn't really make any performance good. And it isn't essential to what they were in the original. Revolver is about the same. Otacon is a little more pathetic and wimpy. I think there might be an argument for him being done wrong in Twin Snakes, but let's not pretend he was some Chad beast in the original. Meryl is better, I argue. Her disillusionment comes through more, especially in the bathroom scene where she's sadder and more dejected, more hurt by Solid Snake's shattering the image she has of him and heroes in general, even though he's just playing it down for her so she stays cool in combat. Listen to how she says, come on, like she's trying to get him to accept her way of seeing things, even as she's coming to understand it's not the full truth. None of that is in the original. The best of the reinterpretive new performances are Gray Fox and Liquid Snake. I know this is going to be a very controversial statement, but I'm pretty confident in arguing that they are much better than the original. In both cases, they were directed to be less theatric and more characteristic. I suppose I should describe being theatric as in projection outwards through the medium, which in this case is the cutscene, through the game, and characteristic as performing as though the actor is that character. The classic comparison between these two ideas is, of course, Olivier and Brando, respectively. Both excellent, and I would actually argue Olivier the better of the two. Nonetheless, I'm actually arguing for the more characteristic idea here. Gray Fox changes from a taunting, sort of erratic madman who loses all his aura in the final scene, by the way, to a phantasmic, intimidating, aloof figure, a personality with its memories hollowed out. A great example of this is how he says,
"The body of who entrusts his life to a weapon. Anyone who trusts his life to a weapon."
In the original, it's more grandiose. It's like a declaration of who he is. To Snake, but also through the sound files of the game, to whomever is playing it. But in Twin Snakes, it's said with disdain. Listen to how he says weapon. He says it with disgust. He's talking directly to Snake as the character, and he is instructing him with some real venom in his voice. His voice is also more level and direct throughout. He is speaking at a low wavelength, we might say. It's more chilling and ghostly, as the character actually is. And this time he's got more hate. Unlike the original, he doesn't sound like an old fogey when he meets you in your time of need in your battle against Metal Gear Rex. Liquid in the original is like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. The performance is not bad in itself and fits the tone of the original, which was to be an action film. It was to be more cartoonish and silly. But Twin Snakes, ironically in making its cutscenes more action-oriented, makes the voice acting less theatric and more characteristic. I'm gonna say I'm not sure if these are the correct terms. These are just the terms I'm using. So correct me in the comments if you will. It doesn't matter matter to me. I just prefer to use the most accurate vocabulary I can. Liquid's new performance in turn portrays his inner psyche piercing through his calculated exterior. The original Liquid is not evil in a way that comes out as true immorality. He's not portrayed as someone immoral, but as someone who is just the antagonist, so to speak, the dramatic foil and platonic opposite to Solid Snake. Unlike Solid, who is cool and reserved, thematically like Gray Fox when he admits his war crime before his death, Liquid in the 1998 game is bold, brash, and loud. He projects everything like he's sweeping his arm across the audience, which he actually does in Twin Snakes. But in Twin Snakes, he is really evil. His voice is cold and uncaring. When he does care, he's sadistic and cruel. But there's also a slight hint of his inferiority complex. Listen to his line,
"Yes, twins. But we're not ordinary twins. We're twins linked by cursed genes."
Listen to how hateful and resentful this whole speech is. It's so much better than the original here.
"Yes, twins. But we're not ordinary twins. We're twins linked by cursed genes." Love? It's hate! He always told me I was inferior, and now I'll have my revenge! You should understand me, brother. You killed our father with your own hands! You stole my chance for revenge! Now I'll finish the work that father began. I will surpass him! I will destroy him!
You're just like Naomi.
Well, I'm not like you! Unlike you, I'm proud of the destiny that is encoded into my very genes! Ha! Love? It's hate. His choosing me, knowingly, to be the inferior one? For this, I want revenge! You don't even understand this! You, who could kill your own real father! You stole my chance for revenge. Now I'll finish the work that father began. I will surpass him. I will destroy him!
You're just like Naomi.
Well, I'm not like you. Unlike you, I'm proud of the destiny that is encoded into my very genes. You missed your last chance. You'll regret that forever.
Snake! Come! Kneel down and sacrifice yourself to this historic weapon! Consider it an honor, a gift from your brother! Now, you shall bear witness to the demon weapon that will drag the world into the 21st century!
His inferiority complex is actually heard, and you can hear in his voice how it's made him hateful, sadistic, and cruel, how it's made him vengeful and truly evil. Like he says he is proud, but you can hear that his pride is twisted in all his actions. In the original, he was just proud, just loud, he was just violent. But in the Twin Snakes, he is those things because of his complexes, because of the evil, the hate, vengefulness, and resentment he has deep down. So, I'm sick and tired of people saying Twin Snakes was all bad, because Cam Clark and Rob Paulson, they really knocked it out of the park, and I'm tired of pretending they didn't. Additional shout out to Peter Lurie because his Vulcan Raven performance in Twin Snakes is literally better in every way.
When he was young, during the Cold War, the world needed men like us. We were valued then. We were desired. But things, are different now. With all the liars and hypocrites running the world, war isn't what it used to be. When he was young during the Cold War, the world needed men like us. We were valued then. We were desired. But things are different now. With all the liars and hypocrites running the world, war isn't what it used to be. Why do you continue to follow your orders while your superiors betray you? Why did you come here? Well, I'll tell you then. You enjoy all the killing. That's why.
What?
Are you denying it? Haven't you already killed most of my comrades?
That was...
I watched your face when you did it. It was filled with the joy of battle.
You're wrong.
There's a killer inside you. You don't have to deny it. We were created to be that way. Why do you continue to follow your orders while your superiors betray you? Why did you come here? Well, I'll tell you then. You enjoy all the killing. That's why.
What?
Are you denying it? Haven't you already killed most of my comrades?
That was...
I watched your face as you delivered the coup de grace. Oh, it reflected such vitality.
You're wrong.
There is a killer inside you. You don't have to deny it. We were created to be that way.
I've come from another world to do battle with you.
What is it, revenge?
It is nothing so trivial as revenge. A fight to the death with you. Only in that can my soul find respite. I will kill you, or you will kill me. It makes no difference.
I've come from another world to battle with you.
What is it? Revenge?
It is nothing so trivial as revenge. A fight to the death with you. Only in that can my soul find respite. I will kill you, or you will kill me. It makes no difference.
From the outside, we might have seemed like a happy brother and sister, but every time I looked at her, I saw her parents' eyes staring back at me. Tell her for me. Tell her that I was the one who did it.
Outwardly, we may have seemed like contented brother and sister, but every time I looked into her eyes, I trembled with fear. Tell her for me. Tell her that I was the one who did it.
A cornered fox is more dangerous than a jackal.
The cornered fox is more dangerous than a jackal!
By the way, just to really sink the nail in with a final strike, the voice director, Chris Zimmerman Salter, did the English direction for literally all of these games. Okay, so she did Metal Gear Solid, Legacy of Kain, Tenchu, Metal Gear Solid 2, Eternal Darkness, Tenchu Wrath of Heaven, Ark the Lad, Piano 3, There's Twin Snakes, X-Men Legends, Metal Gear Solid 3, so she's done every Metal Gear Solid, actually. I think, right? Yeah, okay, so Snake Eater, then Area 51, Killer 7, Dead Rising, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, Lost Planet, God of War 2, No More Heroes, Metal Gear Solid 4, God of War 3, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Vanquish, another God of War, Metal Gear Rising, Metal Gear Solid 5, both games in the Metal Gear Solid 5 series. And then what else? Spider-Man 2018. I know normies love that. So yeah, I mean, what's the objection? Like, she has the credentials. And even when she made Twin Snakes, she had the credentials. She directed Sons of Liberty's English cast. So come on, dude. Thanks. Is the visual production design better? Overall, no. Unsurprisingly, the actual best part of the original Metal Gear Solid, the visual design, unique to the PS1, could not be recreated. Those painted-on lights and shadows, the starkness of the Fulbright environment in contrast with those objects, is forgotten as Twin Snakes tries to exploit all the newfangled capabilities of the GameCube with dynamic shadows and all that. Obviously, the polygon count for most characters is better, and now they don't have to do the retarded head bobbing crap, but the models themselves are really not good at all. Their details are all smudged up, despite the fact that the artist can clearly draw. I genuinely don't know what happened here, other than they ran out of time and did the character models dead last. Otacon clearly got it the worst, but he's not much worse than his father a decade later. What got it the worst in terms of just overall visual production, cinematography, I guess you would say, since it is a scene, is Liquid's final speech. It was great in the original and probably the best one, but they replaced the low-key lighting with high-key lighting, and now it just sucks visually. Let us return now to the analysis of the themes of Metal Gear Solid 1. The themes of Twin Snakes as they extend from the original, as it is substantially, but not in accidents, in essence, the same tale as the 1998 game. The word I was looking for, which I lacked, for I could say it had a reason to exist artistically, but I could not say that it was geopolitical. Metal Gear Solid 1 is not a geopolitical tale. Unlike Peace Walker, unlike 3, unlike 5, it is a straight-up action movie. It has no grander ideas about the shifting of borders and memes of the world. It is nascent, and those will come later. What is present in Metal Gear Solid 1 aesthetically in its drama is indeed just that. It is character drama. It is melodrama, even. Let's get into it. Is Liquid's claim to a genetic imperative true? As it is shown by the mere presence of Solid as the opposing force, Liquid cannot be said to have a genetic imperative, because Solid has the same genes, yet the opposite goal. If it is true that they are twins linked by cursed genes, then it is also true that it is memes that separate them. This simultaneously is a proof that what Liquid believes guides him. His genes, to him, are just another meme. Big Boss was guided not by the ideal of genetic proliferation. Outer Heaven and the MSF, as they were called, were made up of mercenaries. They were not made up of his family members. Big Boss had no family whatsoever, and neither does Solid, besides Liquid. However, the counter-argument might be made that even if it is not an imperative, it is at least a meme which comes from genes. Yet, even this is not true. Since his genes are not separate from him, and are not sentient, and do not communicate with him, and so on and so forth, there is no argument for saying that his genes tell him he must recreate Outer Heaven, because how could they? By what mechanism could they do that? Because they constructed his brain? They constructed Solid's brain, but which memes, which ideals are instilled in the psyche are more important than the genes that lay the foundation? The final argument, going to that brain, that dilemma between solid and liquid, the phenotype, is controverted by the fact that the genetic Big Boss actually displayed the recessive phenotype of his sons, yet still founded both the MSF and Zanzibar land, yet Solid has no such imperative. Therefore, it cannot possibly come from phenotype or genotype. It must come from memes. From the memotype we discussed in the appraisal of Metal Gear Solid 1. Is Liquid then lying to himself? No. Liquid has been lied to by a son of the boss. The one who, in the end, refused the mimetic lineage of the true Big Boss, Revolver Ocelot. His goal, per the ending of MGS5, was to make Liquid stronger in Jack's lineage, the false zombified boss, while Kazuhira Miller would train Solid in the lineage of the true phantom boss, Venom Snake. The lie is not that the zombified Big Boss, Jack, would revolt against American hegemony, revolt against the trichotomy. Now, just Cypher, given that Cypher has control over the United States and the Soviet Union is no longer a factor. It's that his revolt was a mimetic revolution. The true revolution, the turning of ideals, was in outer heaven, not Zanzibar land. And it is by Ocelot's indoctrination that Liquid confuses one for the other, thinking that the real Big Boss would ever stand for the same immorality as the Patriots. The reason that Big Boss was cloned is because clones are easy to control. There is an author who I am not a fan of, but whom I believe Kojima was influenced by, Jean Baudrillard. Jean Baudrillard's works, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, that I've been reading predate Metal Gear by quite a few years, even the very first game. I want to really preface this again by saying I am not a fan of this guy at all. He's very verbose, but says very little given the absurd word count and meandering sentences he writes with. Let me begin with a quote. Cloning is thus the last stage of history, and modeling of the body, the one at which, reduced to its abstract and genetic formula, the individual is designed to serial propagation. What is lost in the work that is serially reproduced is its aura, is its singular quality of the here and now. It takes on, in its ineluctable destiny of reproduction, a political form. What is lost is the original, which only a history itself nostalgic and retrospective can reconstitute as authentic. The most modern form of this development is one in which the original no longer exists, since things are conceived from the beginning as a function of their unlimited reproduction. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Does this not describe the situation of Solid and Liquid and their brother genome soldiers? And isn't there a greater crime against humanity, that is, the human form and function, in Solid's act of patricide by his destruction of their original, their template, their father? Liquid does have a point, and Naomi's horrified reaction to Solid's explanation might not land properly unless you comprehend that, as a geneticist, she realizes there is no longer an authentic being with the genotype of Big Boss. All of them, with Solid's action, are now copies with no original. All of them are simulacra, and Solid made them that way. Yet, the reason why they became this way was a good one, a moral one. Due to Big Boss's actions, the results are nonetheless the same. The clones have no singularity and can only be political forms, only tools of some state or governmental body. They are deprived of their paternal lineage. It must be said that the genome soldiers are not clones per se, but genetic imitations. Yet even then, it is clear that their purpose as warfighters is a political one. War is kinetic politics, and the genome soldiers are the kinesis. Clones unlike normal humans, of course, cannot be differentiated by genes. Their metaphorical and literal fingerprints are the same. They are thus easier to control because they have no individual identity. The crux of their control is that they cannot authenticate their existence except by memes. And if they are indoctrinated by the right memes, they will remain subjects. Miller knew this, and Ocelot did not. Ocelot assumed that merely because Eli had the superior phenotype that he would succeed, for he still believed in Jack, the false big boss, and the potential in those genes, but he could not see the forest for the trees and taught his foster son incorrectly. Not only had Eli taken on so many mental infirmities, but the false ideal of the so-called big boss could never succeed when put against the truth. That is, the true inheritor of the will of the true big boss, of the actual big boss, Solid Snake, the successor to Venom's line. Liquid's meme makes him the subject, and Solid's meme makes him a master of himself and his destiny, of his own cloned body as a fighting force. What is the fundamental difference between them? Solid, unlike his brother, is a snake eater. The phantom pain is serpentine and it never goes away. The true inheritors of the will of Big Boss are those who can both exercise and harness it, like Big Boss, like Punish Venom, and now like Solid too. Each had to exercise a phantom pain and a serpentine one as well. The ghost of the boss from the Peace Walker, Skullface, and then Liquid Snake. The phantom pain felt by the Shadow Moses revolutionaries was caused by Solid back in Zanzibar land, and now he has to exercise it. He has to free the world of the repercussions of his actions by vanquishing the tyrant Liquid before he can unleash nuclear fire onto the free world. Gray Fox, in a way, is also Solid's personal phantom, his personal mirror, in the same way Skullface was to Naked Snake. Even though this retcon was fucking stupid because the game implies that Perfect Score was canon, therefore retroactively ruining the original by implying Naked Snake had a massive body count, when in fact the boss is his only on-screen kill in that entire game. However, Gray Fox is a loose cannon, an out-of-control element, and given way more swag awesome moments in this game anyways, so he has to be discussed. What is he thematically? Who is he? And why is he here? Gray Fox, being physically alive yet metaphorically dead, is the personification of phantom pain. What is its origin? How does it develop? How does it change a man? And how does it end? What is the means of its exorcism? The answers are in Gray Fox. Gray Fox's origin in his current Spectre state is by the hand of Solid Snake when he killed him back in Zanzibar land. Just like the boss and her lover, the Sorrow, appropriately phantasmic in proportion to Gray Fox, Snake's loss transforms and haunts him because they were connected, friends, because they were brothers in arms, even when bearing arms against each other. Gray Fox came to aid Solid Snake in his hour of need. It was perhaps because Solid had become so inebriated with combat and his need for it that he could not delude himself with the lofty ambitions that a daughter of the philosophers might have. Unlike Gray Fox, the Sorrow directly aids the enemy of his lover, the boss, Naked Snake, as he knows someone such as the boss is not capable, if she ever was, of exorcising him. Gray Fox is greater and stranger still than the Sorrow. as he does not even need Solid himself to exorcise him. He is aware that Solid's phantoms haunt him and him alone. Even though they share a phantom pain, it is still on the part of each one of them individually to exorcise it. And Grey Fox sees that for him to exorcise this, he must aid his brother, his true brother, not a clone he never knew. He also needed to know that his brother had stayed the same warrior deep down, and when came the time for him to die, he accepted that he had done all he could to rectify their previous unwilling enmity. For Solid, the phantom pain was exercised by exacting retribution on the force that had put them at odds to begin with. The errors, the tyranny of the false boss. It is appropriate to say, then, that the futurist here, the true revolutionary in Shadow Moses, is Solid Snake and his allied forces. Liquid admits the symmetry, the supposed perfection of the terrible children and the genome forces, dooms them to extinction. But he does not explain the exact mechanism of their fate. It is over-specialization. The terrible children and the genome forces, the whole progeny of the big boss, are all over-specialized. They have all been given only a certain set, a certain phenotype in the case of Solid and Liquid, which was specialized for soldiering, for warfighting. Liquid has all of Big Boss's leadership qualities, an understanding of group dynamics, his strategic mind, and a ruthlessness born in the war zones of Africa. Solid, meanwhile, is the imperfect one. They are both strong and capable warfighters, sure, but Solid can be stone-faced. He doesn't make friends easily, doesn't strategize in the same way or to the same degree as Liquid, and is often caught off guard by his enemies. Yet Solid is crafty, he is cunning, and unrelenting. A survivor like his father had proven to be back during Operation Snake Eater. It is his imperfections, the variety and range of inclinations and abilities, which make him unspecialized, and on paper not as fit to replace the boss as his brother is, but in reality make him just like their father. His allies are also not merely genetic imitations of him. Even if they are not altogether a supremely skilled lot, they still perform the roles Solid asks of them to the degree necessary for victory. Unlike all the perfect genome soldiers who, despite being Olympic-level athletes, expert warriors, and super geniuses, could not stop a single man who didn't even enter the theater with a weapon. Thus, the revolution, if it was one at all, is overturned by another revolution, born from a son of Big Boss. Twin Snakes is, as a game, mechanically and technically sound, which is more than can be said for the original, but it is not sound in level design. Even though it has provided a higher molarity set of levels, it still fails to produce high molarity gameplay overall. It is aesthetically an awesome game. It is cinematic and full of epic scenes. But if I were to choose between that and those human resources expended on revising the campaign, I'd have chosen the latter. Though that is not to say we would not experience a loss in either case, because this game has some sick moments. The sheer awesomeness of Kitamura's choreography doesn't make up for the poor layout of Kojima's original game. What Twin Snakes does produce by the removal of at least some of the retarded and gay adventure design and the infusion of first-person aiming is a true blend of stealth and action mechanics, which was not present in the 1998 game, and by this inducts itself into an actual canon of Metal Gear games, an original trilogy, if you will, alongside Substance and Subsistence. In terms of net merit, a final score where we account all the deficiencies and accomplishments of the creative work in question on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is worthless garbage to be actively avoided, and a 10 is a perfect piece of art which must be understood, and whose understanding truly inspires the witness. Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes is a 3 out of 10.